Okay, and we'll do roll call.
Sure. Lyle.
Here.
Bartlett. S. Cortade.
Here.
M. Cortade.
Here.
Matt Cook.
Here.
And Walters.
Present.
And Friend.
Yes, here. Thank you. On the agenda, let's see, tonight, regular board agenda is a reports meeting. So we have the consent agenda, and that does have the TTCI coordinating initiative appointment on it, as well then businesses before the Township Board. We have the Road Commission, Board of Commission update. We do have our audit results. Our accountant is here, engineering projects, and then departments, parks, assessing, ambulance, planning and zoning. I would like to look at adding under planning and zoning as well with the Beach District implementation team, the safe routes to school easements.
So do you want that to be like 4A?
Yeah, that's fine, or B, because A would really be like the Beach District implementation
Okay.
team. So is there any conflict of interest with any of the agenda items that are listed or added? Okay. Is there, no conflicts are declared? Is there an approval of the agenda as amended?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Okay. Moved by Bartlett and supported by Walters. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to public comment. Ann, do you want to do the rules for public comment?
Of course. The purpose of public comment is to give members of the public an opportunity to express their views and opinions to the members of this commission, this board. To maintain order and ensure fairness to every speaker, the following rules must be followed during public comment. Speakers will approach the podium and introduce themselves by stating their name and address, and then proceed to make their comment. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes and is only allowed to speak once on the same matter. Communication previously emailed to the board is not necessary to be read aloud. Public comment time may not be given to another member of the public. Any arrangement for speaking on behalf of others must be arranged prior to the meeting. When your time is at 2 minutes, you will be alerted with a yellow signal to wrap up your comment, and at 3 minutes, you will be alerted with a red signal, and the chair will ask you to conclude your comments.
Thanks, Ann. This is the opportunity for public comment. If anyone would like to deliver public comment, please come and introduce yourself at the podium. Hi, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Would you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Ben Fisher. I live at 2078 Lothlorien Drive, which is on the east side of 4 Mile between Hammond and the Bay. I'm here because I have been talking to Beth about a potential project on my property. I have 30 acres there, and I'm interested in splitting it into like 20 to 24 parcels of land to be developed. It's a bed of sand. I have some pretty serious topographical challenges, but it's a very pretty area, as is all of East Bay Township. I'm looking for relief, direction in applying for a variance or an amendment to the utility ordinance 109. To kind of refresh some of your memories, Utility Ordinance 109 basically says East Bay Township wants the growth of the township to happen more densely within the growth boundary. And then it kind of trickles down and saying that as a health requirement, you should be bringing in municipal water and sewer in those areas. And they say that because of septic failures and because of soils and other conditions. A couple issues that I have with this ordinance is that, its intention is to promote growth, but there's quite a few areas where it hinders growth. The fact of septic issues having failures due to soils and other reasons. Other reasons seems a little bit ambiguous to me. And for soils, I mean, I have had multiple perk tests done by the health department on my property, and I have beach sand it's as good a percolating soil as you can get, and there's plenty of new septic systems like the Presby and the Elgin system that are really safe. Code has been updated for the health department. All this I'm referencing since 2004 when this Utility 109 was written. Also, the density that I'm looking for doesn't really warrant these requirements because in section 225 of the land use ordinance, it's like 3 homes per acre would force municipal to be brought in, but if you're doing 1 per acre, private and well and septic is okay. So I feel like the land use ordinance kind of touches on that potential problem with density, and then kind of getting down to the the intent of the ordinance is to promote growth in that area. I'm in that area, but for me to bring water and sewer is just, it makes it unfeasible due to cost, which I know to a certain degree is not something that you base your decisions on. But there is a reality that if we're trying to promote growth in this area and all of the environmental factors are in place for a safe development of something that isn't bringing crazy density, I don't see why this ordinance doesn't have some sort of exception or an understood body of appeal. So there's no appeal process that I can go through right now. There's no exceptions to this ordinance at this point, so I just wanted to bring it forth to you guys for hopeful discussion on either granting some relief or going back and amending the ordinance in some type of way.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate it. Is there additional public comment? Okay, thank you. We will move on to correspondence and reports. That information is in your packet. There's a Traverse Connect, Regional Economic Ecosystem, a meeting log, and then the links for the most recent Planning Commission, ZBA, and Parks Commission meetings there for your review. We will then go down to the consent agenda. Sue, would you let us know what were the final totals then on the consent agenda? That would be
Certainly. The one that was sent out on Wednesday failed to remove the road SAD fund. So your revised amounts, the general fund, emergency fund, receiving fund, and escrow all stay the same. The 2 payrolls stay the same for a total amount of $368,344.28. It just was not removed when we created the form for this packet.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a couple calculators that corroborated that too, right? Okay.
Yeah, we had 3 of
good.
us calculating.
Okay, that's good. And then we also did have the Transportation Coordinating Initiative in this, and I've only had one person reach out to me, so I needed a name to put into that. Tracy did volunteer for that. Was there anybody else who wanted to volunteer for that? Okay, I don't plan on being absent to those meetings, but they didn't want a cross-pollination between the technical committee
Right.
and the policy committee. So,
Makes sense. I think Tracy's a great representative in your absence.
so we'll add her name to that information under the TTCI initiative appointment. So with that, is there anything that anyone wants removed from the consent agenda? Is there anybody from the public who wants anything removed from the consent agenda? Okay, we'll bring that back to the board. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda with the revised total and with the TTCI appointment to be Tracy Bartlett for the alternate appointment?
I would make that motion.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Bartlett, support by Escortade. Any further discussion? Okay, Ann, we'll do a roll call vote.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
Lyle.
No.
Cook.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
And Friend.
Yes. Okay, with that, we will move to the business before the Township Board. We have organizational updates here. County Road Commission is here. Dan's here. Hi, Dan. And Elisa Korn, Board Member. How are you both? Good. Nice to have you here.
Thanks. Not a lot of updates since we were here last time. Definitely full swing summer operations here. We're doing a lot of mowing right now, trying to get through everything. I do have all the states and primaries done, mostly working on the locals, and then we're going to start going back through doing a second cut on the locals and primaries. The state only opted for one cut this year, so we tried to hit that in the middle of July when everybody was up here for safety reasons as best we could, and then this will be the last mow for the states for the year. Finished up all of our chip seals, 70 miles of that, came out really good. We're doing that heavy fog seal this year, so I think it looks really nice. Got all our long lines painted back on there. Here comes the fun part for us. After the 4th of July, we start thinking winter. So when we come back from the 4th of July break, we're full blown winter. So we've got our sand stacked up, we've got our salt stacked, our blades just came in for the year. So we usually go through about 215 carbide blades a year. We used to use steel blades, which don't last very long. So these carbide blades, we can actually get our drivers can do maybe 2 blades a year versus the carbide blade or the steel blades we had to replace every single time. So we had over thousands of blades in. So this is our 3rd or 4th year now with the carbide blades. They're working really great. So we're always glad when we get that order in. Makes us feel good that we know we can get through the winter there. Something else that we're looking at, we have the new building that we're building down in Kingsley. That's going really well. So far, we're still on time and on budget, so we're very happy about that. But with that larger building, we're starting to look at moving things around a little bit. And we're thinking about putting 2 more routes down out of there. And what that does for East Bay is we're looking at the route that actually takes care of like down off of where River Road comes up in the bottom half of the Arbutus. And there'll be a second truck on Garfield. So we're actually coming with traffic going against it, and we'll be actually get down there a little quicker. So we're looking at moving that route there. So might see a little bit better change in plowing routes down in that area. So, and we're hoping to move in. They're telling us January, but we're hoping a little sooner. So things are going pretty good down there. The other things that we're working on right now, moving through doing a lot of ditching. We're hoping to fire up. Last year we did some of that wedging where you saw us come into a couple of spots that, you know, don't have the funding to go and replace the whole road, but there's a couple of bad spots or dips, and we put a little bit down there. So we're hoping to get going here probably end of July on that project. The other thing I want to just update everybody on, Town Line Road. I know I've been pushing hard for Town Line Road. Beth has too, very much appreciated. We're running into several surprises with Town Line Road. It's probably going to push us into next spring. There's culverts in there, and we're running into all sorts of issues with those culverts. You have to replace it with a box culvert, which is quite expensive, and they have to build it, and we have to go through Eagle and all these fun things. There's actually 4 small culverts, and they want us to replace it with a single box. What really runs into the problem once we get into there's gas lines and all sorts of fun things in there that we're finding that we weren't aware of. So we're going to have to get the gas lines moved and all that stuff. So still very strongly moving on that project. It's just unfortunately getting delayed a little bit. So hopefully more to come on that soon.
How are you, Elisa?
Oh, I'm good. Dan and the crew do the important things, but our board has been focusing on what we do, which is policies and budget. A few disappointing things. I think you guys all know the Michigan legislature met to approve the budget for this next year, and it looks really bad for roads. No additional funding was approved for local roads at all, along with some EV mandates and things are making things pretty tough on us for our state allocations. On the federal side, things are not looking great either. The Biden administration did approve $88 million in road funding for special projects for the state of Michigan, and only 2 went north of Clare and not in our area at all. So we're really trying hard as a board to rethink our budget and our policies to squeeze every penny or every mile out of the road dollars that we can. We've been meeting quite frequently. We have some extra board meetings where we're talking about how we really want to attack things like special assessment districts and infrastructure projects. And we're looking at changing our policies and how we are offering different options to our consumers, which are all of us, the taxpayers, in how we partner with special assessment districts, maybe changing the way that we allocate the local funding and those matches that we do, and looking just to try to find a better way to partner with everyone, because unfortunately, with the dollars that are coming into our local road commission, we have enough to maybe plow, but we don't have enough to really move forward on big infrastructure projects, so we need to partner with everyone, and that's what we're focusing on, is creating new policies and different ways to stretch our budget. It's been a frustrating process for sure. Feel free to reach out to your state and federal representatives and let them know that Northern Michigan matters too, and we need to have a seat at the table on the discussions about transportation funding that are coming up here. It's been pretty dismal for our board each year, and next year we'll have even less dollars to work with. So that was the depressing part. But the Cherry Festival's over, and weather's beautiful, so we at least have that going. But take a look at those numbers if you get a chance. I encourage everybody to look at what our state legislature just did, not just with transportation. The budget was abhorrent, to say the least. We should all be paying attention to it.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. Have a good evening. Thanks for being here again. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the Board of Commissioners. We're fortunate to have two Board of Commissioners, and they are both here. How are you this evening?
Very good, Supervisor. Thank you. Rob Henschel, Grand Traverse County Commission Chair. Darrell Nelson, District 6 Commissioner with me. He's on cleanup. I wrote the notes, and then he's going to clean up. So obviously, the biggest thing we're dealing with is a cybersecurity issue at the county. Some weeks ago, I will say over the last 6 years since Darrell and I have been involved, we've actually been voting for, kind of gritting our teeth a little bit, a lot of cyber upgrades and our network upgrades and computer system upgrades. And, they look like a good idea, but when you're spending six figures on computer stuff and it's just software, it's like, oh man, is it really worth it? Well, this year, in the midst of that attack, we found out it was worth every cent, because it could have been a complete loss of all county data if we were still in the system we were 6 years ago. That AS400 system, an old mainframe style computer that's like out of the 70s, we got rid of that, moved to modern systems, and it was a godsend that we did. It did interrupt very few services. 911 had zero interruptions. They were still online. But some of their auxiliary support systems were offline for several days. Things when you call in, it tells any auxiliary information about the caller or the situation, and that is all back online and is now actually on a cloud-based system, state-of-the-art stuff that's much more secure and safe. And probably the biggest hit was really BSNA, which I know the township uses. The city of Traverse City uses. There is a cloud system available, but it's only in beta. So the city is really, we've been working really hard with them to try and get them back online, but they probably were the worst hit by this attack because of the older mainframe infrastructure. I will say, as a business owner that runs a network, and in my experience with the county, I would encourage every organization to look into cloud technologies, because with the old style system where all of our software packages for all the services we deliver are on a network, if one of those is compromised, they're all compromised. Whereas the cloud-based system, if you have one vendor that's doing your cloud work for one sector, maybe it's your time card software or whatever, and that gets hacked, that gets compromised, all your other stuff still works. So I'm really a believer in cloud technology now. I used to be really skeptical because, the internet's kind of, is it there or isn't it? Well, put up some redundant internet infrastructure, and cloud is really the way to go from our experience. Other than that, we've got a special meeting this Wednesday at 10 in the morning. We've got a couple additional budget items. We're moving more stuff to the cloud. There's an expense associated with that, so we have a firm that specializes in the migration, so we're considering a budget item for that. And then some Sentinel software, it's called, that will keep an eye on those. Some services, there's just simply isn't a cloud solution available. So for those services, we have a Sentinel software that's going to keep an eye on the county's computer systems. This last month, the Hospital Finance Authority of Grand Traverse County met. We work with Munson Healthcare to leverage kind of some interesting legislation in Michigan that basically allows the hospital system to use the bond rating of Grand Traverse County. As I've mentioned before, we have the best bond rating in the history of Grand Traverse County right now, a AA+, as good as we're going to get without draining the bay. They actually count the proximity to water against you in bond ratings. It's one of those very minor factors, but that's probably what keeps us from a AAA. But very financially sound county right now, and fortunately through the Hospital Finance Authority, our local healthcare system was able to refinance about $52 million in different programs they have for different projects they had going, saving them about $10 million over the course of those finance projects. I was elected chair of the Hospital Finance Authority, so one more hat to wear. Commission facility tours happened in May. We're working through the facilities master plan right now. It's kind of put on hold because of we're putting our focus on the cybersecurity issues. But I expect in the next couple of months we'll be picking that back up and more planning for the future and for the infrastructure of the county. So I'll turn over to Daryl to fill in any gaps.
Okay. I did tell the road commission that I haven't seen a snowplow truck down my road in months. I'm really happy about that. So, on that cybersecurity attack, that was the second attack that Grand Traverse County has had. We had one, what was that, May, April? Where some software we had instituted immediately found it, and they were able to watch this system. I don't know how it works that's the computer world, kind of attack it and shut things down and isolate it. And that was some software that we had. It was like a $52,000 software, which always seems really expensive, but completely knocked that thing down. The second one, along with the software, there was procedures in place that if this happens, you pull out this procedures and you start following the procedures. And I'm really proud of the employee who did just that. He called the vendor, the software was acting up, he called the vendor said, this doesn't look right, we don't think this is us. He pulled that out immediately, contacted IT contact administrator, they shut down the server. From my understanding, there's like 5 steps it takes to fully envelop your system and totally take it down. That was the first step, and it got stopped right there. So anytime you see anyone from the IT department of the county and the employees, hats off to them because they really stepped up and we're very, very fortunate. We're going to spend some money to rush some things into the cloud and make sure it's scrubbed and all that kind of stuff, but that we wouldn't have had to spend. But we were heading that way anyway and going to the cloud-based. And so anyway, I'm really proud of the staff members who dealt with this. It was a truly drop everything else you're doing and 100% was on this. And you can imagine the nightmare. It started at, 6:06 in the morning was when this all started happening. So it was a good thing. Anything I want to talk about? Camp Graylick. For those of you that were at the listening session that they had out at the Nature Conservancy building over there, was well attended and very positive. John Chase, the Parks and Rec Director for the county, did a great job of kind of explaining that we're listening, we're looking. You guys are fully aware of some of the neighbors and some of their concerns that they're having. We're going to have a very robust system to move forward with listening to them. And it was a very positive meeting, and some of the people that have been very upset were there. I invited them to come, the ones that were talking to me, and I'm sure you do the same thing. And I think they understand that we're not renting pontoon boats. The chicken dance is not going to be wafting over Rennie Lake. That's not the whole point of this. So I think we're both very excited, and I think you guys probably are too, that property who was literally within hours of becoming privately owned by someone outside of the area, that's going to stay within the county. So I'm very, very, very happy about that, and I'm hoping some of you guys are as well. So it's going to be a great, great community resource. So any questions for us?
I want to thank both of you and the Board of Commissioners for approving the purchase of Camp Graylick. So I know that that was quite exceptional and very much appreciated.
You were helpful as well in getting us there, so we appreciate your support.
And boy, that phishing scam can happen and can happen quickly. And the scammers are quite sophisticated these days, so it can happen so easily. I know you guys do as well as we do the training here, and it's kind of scary how sophisticated they can get, so.
Cliff DuBois, the IT director, was at Alexandria, Virginia, when they had an 8-month paper-only process after going through that. So he has been criticized by some for being extra careful, but we have supported him, and thankfully, he's been pushing really hard to change a lot of things, moved a lot of cheese for a lot of people. But he knows what it's like to go, Alexandria County is way bigger than us, and they were paper and pencil for 8 months.
I will say, last week, there was a bad actor created an email address completely disconnected from mine, but he said it was mine and sent emails to a bunch of people in the county saying it was from me. And we've seen this before several times. Every few months, somebody does this. But this one was interesting because if anyone got an email from me, you see, I always end it with kind regards, Rob Henschel. Nobody else does that. I don't see anybody saying kind regards. It's a salutation. This email said kind regards, Rob Henschel on it. Like, so they're using AI and they're getting more sophisticated. So always check the from email address. If it, if anytime someone's asking you for something.
That's the ticket, the from email address. They go on our website and pull our names off as elected officials and do that, yep.
I'm now saying
Yeah.
best regards, Rob Henschel.
All right, well, thank you very much, and thank you for being here tonight. With that, we'll move on to some internal reports. We're going to move on to our financial. We have our, Steve Peacock is here with Raymond for our audit of the fiscal year 2023. And we also have Steve Krnovic here as well, who will be following up with any comments or questions after the audit. Okay? Hi, Steve, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
Good.
Are all you guys?
It's been a year.
It has been a year, and I thought Daryl would stick around for my presentation because I had to listen to his. So he, so.
Next
I
time.
think
I'm
last year
sure.
he had to sit through mine, so all's good. So, just to go on the heels of cyber, we have a large client right now, local, undergoing a very significant cyber threat or a cyber breach, and they are back to general ledger paper accounting.
Yeah.
And they take our year end from the prior year, and that's their starting. They don't have any other data. All the data's gone.
Yeah.
And
And
they won't pay the ransom, which I don't suggest that they do, but
Yeah.
they got to have more software and cloud space to put their data, and unfortunately, this just wasn't the case for this particular one.
And as part of this, obviously, they take a look at our cybersecurity as well, so.
Yep. That is the number one thing that people are concerned about at the moment, is cybersecurity. If you ask our CEO, she doesn't worry about any one of us, but she worries about that intrepid cyber attack that one of these days is going to attack and get some, maybe all of us at one point, so. All right, enough on cyber attacks. Let's talk about the audit, the 12/31/2023 audit for East Bay Township. You guys have the bound copies and you have our SAS letter. I'm going to talk from the bound copy, first letterhead, page 1, Independent Auditor's Report. Just briefly, we'll talk about what this is. This is what you pay us to do. This is our report. So the first paragraph talks about the financial statements that we were engaged to audit. And those are the December 31st, 2023 financials and the respective notes to the financial statements. The second paragraph is our opinion. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the township as of 12/31/23, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows and the budgetary comparisons for the general and the major special revenue fund for the year that ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the U.S. It's a long-winded answer of an unmodified or clean report. So that's the highest, that's the gold standard that we can put on financial statements. So your audit is at the highest level as far as compliance goes, okay? Next paragraph talks about the basis for our opinion. We use generally accepted governmental auditing standards. On to the next page, page 2, the first bold line here, responsibilities of management for the financial statements. These are management's financial statements. These do not belong to Raymond. These are management's financial statements. And the responsibility is delineated in those first two paragraphs, or those two paragraphs. Our responsibility is delineated in the bottom half of page 2. So you'll see that we are to get a reasonable assurance about the financial numbers that are attached in your financial statements. And then you go down on the bottom here at the bottom, exercise professional judgment, identify and assess risks material from the statement, obtain an understanding of the internal control, evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies, et cetera. That's just a short list of what we do. We do a lot more than that, but those are the most important things we do in doing our audit. It's not just testing an account balance, so it's more than that. Top of page 3, required supplementary information. The management's discussion and analysis, which follows, begins on page 6. That is a document that is prepared by management. We read that to make sure it's consistent with the financial statements, but we do not express an opinion over that particular section of this report. Next paragraph, supplementary information, the combining fund statements that appear after the footnotes. Though that's what this particular paragraph is talking about. If you go to the last sentence of that paragraph, in our opinion, the combining fund financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in relation to the basic statements taken as a whole. So those are covered by the report. Top of page 4, this refers the reader to there's an audit report that appears in the very back of the document, and we'll get to that here shortly. Any questions on the report? All right, moving through the document here, I'm going to take you all the way to page 17. Governments are required to present 2 balance sheets and 2 income statements. Page 17 is your first balance sheet. This has all your assets and your liabilities on there, all in one. Speaking from the total column on the right, total assets of the township, $50,924,000. Liabilities of $4,678,000. Some deferred inflows of $6.5 million. And the remaining is net position, or this would be akin to retained earnings, fund balance, et cetera. But the most important number to show on the bottom here is the unrestricted portion of $21.2 million. So that is a very, very healthy, unrestricted net position. Statement of activities on page 18. This is income statement number 1. It looks kind of cattywampus if you're used to looking at for-profit financials. Starts out with the expenses in the first column, and then it applies program revenues such as charges for services or operating grants. Overall, on the right-hand side, you're going to see total governmental operation activities had a $4.4 million net expense, and your water and sewer had a $1.1 million increase or net revenue. So flip those numbers over to the next page, and then it gets a little more ordinary looking. You've got those numbers that carry over from page 18. Then you apply certain things like property taxes, state revenue share, tower rentals, et cetera. So then you get down to third line from the bottom. Governmental activities had a net income of $785,000. Your business type activities, which is water sewer, $2,043,000. Overall total increase of $2,828,000. Add those to the beginning balances and you end up with a net position of $39.7 million. So all good things heading in the right directions here. I don't generally talk about the other remaining balance sheet and income statements, but those appear on page 20, 21, 22, and 23. There is a reconciliation in those pages I just mentioned that reconciles the 2 balance sheets and income statements, so we know that we're in balance once we get ready to issue the final report. All right, on to page 24. This is your budgetary comparison. So this is the general fund on page 24. This basically shows your original budget, your final budget, the actual fund performance, and then the variance. The state doesn't care at all about the revenue section, but they care a lot about the expense section. So you'll see in almost all these categories on the right-hand side, all of these are underspent, which you guys get a gold star for that. Because when you go over those, which we'll see on the next page, page 25, you will see there are two overages, debt service for principal of $1,444, and then transfers out of $14,172. So those are in excess of what the budget was permitted, and there's a footnote disclosure that talks about that. We're required under state law to report that to the state, and they will look at our footnotes immediately when they get the report and say, okay, is there a lot? If there's a lot, you might get a letter from the state asking why. having two of these is not that big a deal. You guys are a very good budgeting organization, and if you have a couple a year, that's not crazy. So you guys do a good job. 26 is the Emergency Services Fund. Again, this is the same type of presentation, budget to actual. All of those were underspent, so you're good in that, on that fund. Your water and sewer funds as a proprietary fund is required to present a little different formats here. So this is your water and sewer, and then the total column on the right. For all the assets in these particular two funds, water and sewer, 33.5 million of total assets. Primarily, these are going to be cash and investments, and then your infrastructure. And then over on the liability side, you got $4.1 million, primarily consisting of your bonds payable. The remainder of this would end up being unrestricted net position of 13.7. Again, another very healthy financial statement for the water sewer funds. Page 28 is the income statement for the water and sewer funds, and you'll see that the revenues on the top, $3,012,000 is the total revenue for those two funds combined. If you go down to the third line from the bottom, net change in net position, this would be your net income. 762 for sewer, 1,280,000 for water, overall increase of 2,043,000. Any questions on those? Am I going too quick? You guys are still awake. All right. Page 29 and 30, you may say, why is there a cash flow statement here? Because you've never seen one before. Well, you have in previous years, but your proprietary funds are the only funds that are required to have a cash flow statement. So this cash flow statement reconciles opening cash to ending cash through various things such as operating activities, non-capital financing activities, capital and related financing activities, and investing. So we've got that financial statement in balance that reconciles opening to ending cash. Pages 31 and 32 represent the custodial funds financial fiduciary net position. This is basically cash the township holds on behalf of somebody else. So you have cash of $1,621,000, and you owe other governmental units $1,601,000, and individuals and agencies $20,137. Very normal that you would have no fund balance or no net position in this fund, because any money that's in there is typically due to somebody else. All right, let's go on to page 34. Any questions on the financial statements that we just briefly ran through? Okay. Page 34, these are your footnotes. These are very consistent with the prior year and are very benign and vanilla in nature. I will direct your attention to page 40. This is where we report to the state. This is the first footnote that I think that the state looks at when they get your financials, is this particular footnote. So those are the two items that we talked about having been over the budget, the debt service for principal and the transfers out of the general fund. So again, you've only got a couple. I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over this. You do a very good job budgeting, but these two crept up and are a little bit over. So the rest of the footnotes, footnote number 4 on page 41, this talks about your cash and cash position along with investments, and that goes all the way through to page 44. Footnote number 5 is a brief table of what your receivable balances are and who they are due from and what they are comprised of. Accounts payable and accrued liabilities are footnote number 6. Interfund receivables and payables round out the bottom of page 45. Capital assets, this is a roll forward on page 46. Beginning balances, any additions made throughout the year. There were no disposals or transfers. That's the ending balance in the far right-hand column. And the next page, 47, has all your business type activities, which is water and sewer. So a very similar format. Bottom of 47 shows the distribution of depreciation expense for those who are interested in seeing which funds got charged for that. Footnote number 9 is discussion on your lease agreements. Footnote 10 is the same format as your capital assets, but this relates to bonds and long-term obligations, showing your beginning balances, any additions throughout the year, payments made throughout the year, ending balance, and then amounts due within 1 year. Page 49, these are your business type or water sewer long-term debt transactions. So you'll see their beginning balance, additions, deductions, ending balance, and amounts due within 1 year. On page 50 shows the multiple years of principal and interest that will be coming due on these particular pieces of debt. You'll see the first one has the governmental activities for the public placement, And then you'll see the governmental activities for direct placement, and then business-type activities, again, water and sewer for public placement. All right. Footnote number 11 discusses your various joint ventures in a very abbreviated fashion, say with Master Sewer, Grand Traverse Metro. Rounding out the footnotes, you have risk management, property tax policy, deferred compensation plan, round out 52, your pension plan, State Construction Code Act compliance at the bottom of 53. Page 54, footnote number 17, this is your fund balance, a little bit deeper dive into the details of your fund balance and what it's either restricted for or non-spendable for, so you can see that on that particular table. And then 55, footnote number 18, reconciles your net investment in capital assets, which is basically capital assets minus the debt associated therewith. Any questions on the footnotes? All right. We're getting through here, getting close. So I typically do not comment on the individual fund statements because those end up rolling right to the very front financial statements. Those are covered by the audit, and I'll leave those ones alone. On page 65, this is what's called a yellow book report. This is our opinion with respect to internal control and compliance matters. If you go to the bottom of the page, last paragraph, second to the last sentence, given the limitations imposed by normal audit, during our audit we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we considered to be a material weakness. However, material weaknesses or significant deficiencies may exist that were not identified. What that means is we examine a selection of transactions and a selection of business cycles. We do that representatively with statistical sampling. We get all areas of the business. Can something slip through? Yep. So audits are not 100% infallible, and that paragraph there says that what we did examine, we have no controls. We have no control issues with the township. Top of page 66, first paragraph, report on compliance. Now, this is your compliance. That earlier paragraph is about internal controls. Report on compliance and other matters. Last sentence, the results of our test disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported under governmental auditing standards. Yet another gold star for our friends at East Bay Township. Any questions on the financial statements, footnotes, yellow book report? Hearing none, if we can get into this letter real quick. This is what we call the SAS letter. This is the Statement on Auditing Standards letter that we are required to have accompany every audit. So this is a communication between the audit firm and those charged with governance, which is you as the board. A lot of this language is similar from what you may have seen in our engagement letters. So we'll make an abbreviated commentary about what this letter actually states. First bold paragraph, our responsibility in relation to the financial statement audit. We issued an engagement letter on January 8, 2024, indicating we were going to do A, B, C, D, and E. I'm here to tell you we've done those, we've reported on those, and these have been issued in final form and have been filed with the state. So you are up to date on compliance with the state with respect to your year-end audit. On to page 2, plan, scope, and timing of the audit. We had internal meetings that concluded on March the 18th of 2024. We were not required to change any material planning benchmarks that we had, and that's a testament to the staff here at the township that works hard to make sure we don't have to change scheduling and do all sorts of crazy stuff. You guys take audits seriously. It's important to do that, so we didn't have to modify our planning approach at all after March the 18th. Compliance with all ethical requirements. Our firm and everybody that is involved has complied with all of the independence requirements. Qualitative aspects of the township's significant accounting policies. We talked about those already. Those are in footnote number 1 to the financials. Significant accounting estimates, about 2/3 of the way down. If you go to that second sentence, or the second paragraph under significant accounting estimates, we did not note any significant accounting estimates affecting the financial statements in the current year, so we're good there. Under significant difficulties encountered in the audit, there were none. On to page 3, uncorrected and corrected misstatements. We'll talk about some of those. Those appear in the very back of the document. Under disagreements with management, we had none of those. Representations requested from management. Attached to this letter, there is a letter that has been signed by management of the township, basically telling the audit firm that what they gave us is what we asked for. It's accurate and honest to the best of their knowledge and belief. So that's what that talks about. To our knowledge, you've not had any consultations other than with Steve with respect to other accountants, which we're typically in the loop on. Other significant matters, findings, or issues, you'll see those here in just a moment. Page 4, other information and documents containing audited financial statements. We already talked about the MD&A. We talked about the combining financial statements in the back. This talks further about that. Upcoming changes in accounting standards, and we'll talk very, very briefly about that. So the next page is the upcoming changes in accounting standards. You'll see most of these will not have much of an impact on East Bay Township. Where they will have impact, we will give you guidance in terms of adoption and implementation, and we will assist you through any one of these accounting pronouncements that will be effective for the township. I don't see any giant GASB accounting pronouncements on the horizon, but that doesn't mean they're not working late night in New York trying to find something to do. So right now, I don't see any great big ones. So suffice it to say, we're over some of the big pensions and the healthcare stuff that's behind us now. All right, on to page B1. This is the representation letter we talked about a moment ago. Nothing crazy there. The very last page is the schedule of adjustments passed. These are adjustments that could have been made to the financial statements that management chose not to make these. And what we do with that is we take these numbers and we look at them and say, okay, how relevant are they to the financial statements? So right across the middle, you'll see the underscore, 27,378 would affect total assets. 27,378 would affect total revenues. So now we go and apply a percentage. How much of total assets and how much of total revenues? So you'll see it's 0.15%. That's not going to get this audit firm all that dandered up at 0.15%. So we agreed with passing on these adjustments. And then the BTA ones were 0.07%, again, even smaller. So these will work through the general ledger in the current year. And you may or may not have past adjustments next year. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. So we are comfortable with where those are sitting today. Any questions on the SAS letter? Questions at all? What's my favorite color? Green. So, yeah, all good?
We'll appreciate it. Yep.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, you guys have a wonderful afternoon.
You do the same.
You too.
Steve, did you have anything to add or anything to go over for the fiscal year 2024?
How's your birthday this time, is it?
No.
Last year was your
2 days, I think.
What a good memory. You have a great memory.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Oh, man.
Yes,
No
that's
birthday
right.
cake for either of you, sorry.
Criteria. But I don't have really anything to add because I think if you hear much more accounting stuff, you'll explode. So I won't go through too much, but I mean, just to kind of reiterate some of the things that Steve had said. Great, good things, no findings, so that's cool, that letter 65 and 66. No findings, no audit journal entries, so that was another positive as we went through the audit process. We've done, Steve's team, Raymond, has filed the audit as he had said with the state. We've also completed the F-65 and the qualifying statement. Got those submitted and sent to the state, sent them to you folks to be reviewed, and once those were reviewed, we transmitted those to the state. And then just some kind of current stuff for 2024. Bank reconciliations are up to date through May 2024. We'll do June's, I think, in the next week or so. I know we had some vacation time and yeah, and Tracy, so we're going to get through June bank reconciliation process, I would assume, in the next week or so, and get those caught right up to date, even though they're very close. Today I spent a lot of time going through, now that the audit is done, I went through the trial balance, the general ledger, and cleaned up a lot of entries, did a lot of reversals, provided many of those to Sue to be posted and into 2024. So I know you have I think it's a July or maybe a July statement in front of you. I know the revenue and expenditure report. There'll be some changes to that just because of those adjusting journal entries that Sue and Holly will post in the next few days and kind of clean up some things that came in 2024 that maybe we recorded back for audit purposes, back into 2023, like cable franchise dollars, and you get some state revenue sharing that comes in at the beginning of 2024 that related to 2023. So I made a bunch of those entries today, and so you'll see those kind of flow through when you get your next report, your next revenue and expenditure report. But nothing out of the ordinary. I kind of scanned through this. I was busy doing a lot of that, so I didn't do a lot of detail on the 2024. That's in, I think, pretty good shape, and like I said, I had maybe 10 entries that I did today that they'll post, and you'll see those kind of flow through for June of 2024. So probably your next report, those will kind of be cleaned up. So, but other than that, I think things are going forward. I mean, like I said, looking at this report, revenues are pretty much on track. You're at like 58%, I think, in the general fund, and we're halfway through the year, so that's pretty good. And I think expenditures are under budget, which is a good way to be. I think there's a lot of those projects that are getting geared up right now and getting rolling, so I think there, will be some of those in the second half of the year that'll jump up. I think you're at roughly 40%, 38% or something like that in expenditures for the general fund, which I'm sure that'll ramp up come this next 6 months to finish up your fiscal year already in only 6 months. That's really all I had. I didn't want to go through, a lot of stuff in detail today, just because we've heard a lot about the audit and everything else. I don't want to overwhelm you anymore. I don't know if there's any questions from the accounting perspective on the audit, or even into 2024 that I can help with, or anything.
Well, first, I just want to thank you guys at Manor Casterison for your assistance in preparing for the audit, and Raymond in conducting the audit, and you followed through all the way to the issuance with questions that we had, and that, so it's very much appreciated. Does anyone have any questions for Steve right now?
I don't think so.
All right,
Always around, so if you have questions.
okay.
feel free to Run through the ladies, you got good resources, but I'm also available too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Steve.
it, Steve. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the Parks Commission, and we have two Parks Commissioners here. We have Corey Layton and Allie Hetmer. How are you ladies tonight? So tell us, how are things with the Parks Commission?
Fun, good, a lot more interesting.
What's that? I'm sorry. Oh, hold on. Oh, I do apologize. I just skipped right ahead.
Sorry, ladies, you don't get to come up yet.
Real quick, let's just, sorry about that, Garth.
What I get for sitting behind the podium.
Hi, Garth, how are you doing? How are you doing tonight? Good.
was like, no.
What's going on, Garth? Can you fill us in up to date?
I will do my best to keep my information qualitative rather than quantitative. Two park projects going on actively right now, Arbutus 5 Park and Jens Park. Arbutus is, for all intents and purposes, complete. We are working through a few final punch list items. It's back open to the public. The biggest challenge we face out there right now are the geese, because they keep eating the grass seed. So that's pretty much the only remaining challenge. The parking lot had its own host of challenges, most of which we've worked through. There's one outlying item, the pavement markings, and once that's resolved, we will be home free on that project, done and over with.
There are a lot of people using the fishing pier that is almost always used when out there, and we've had a lot of nice comments about the park improvement. So mention that too to Ray, because he designed that bathroom facility, and you guys designed the fishing pier and the kayak launch. So a lot of compliments on those.
Yeah, we're happy to see it getting used.
Yeah.
Jens Park is also coming along quickly. I'd say that project is at least 75% complete. The sidewalk and picnic pads have all been poured. The concrete is stamped. It's a weathered board plank look, and I think it looks really nice. I believe they still need to put sealer on it. And this week they're working on doing some pavement patching. We had them, as part of that project, cut out sections of pavement that were damaged due to the roots coming up under it. They pulled that pavement out, and they're putting it back in this week, new pavement. And then on top of that, there'll be seal coating and striping. And then there'll be final restoration. And the only thing that's a long lead item, which we were well aware of to begin with, is the picnic tables. Those had a 10 to 12-week lead time from the day they got ordered. And I think we've probably got 8 weeks to go before we see those. So, but aside from that, the project will be done very soon here. The park will be back open, and then the contractor will come back and install the picnic tables at a later date.
And we are putting some surveillance cameras in Jens Park as well. We've had really good luck with those at Grace McDonald Park in just nearly eliminating vandalism, loiterism, loitering, all of those types of things. So it's unfortunate that it's needed and that it makes such an effect, but it does. So it's a pretty inexpensive way to secure the safety and the amenities there.
Yes, definitely. The only other active project that we have going on right now is the force main project. We are currently heavily focused on right-of-way coordination. On the east side of the stretch of force main, we are working to set up meetings with MDOT Rail to talk about whether or not putting the force main within their railroad right-of-way would be at all possible. It's a desirable location for the force main, but we have to get their blessing in order to do that. And then over on the west side of the force main, we're currently having meetings with the city to discuss what the best route of the two main routes that we selected would be through the city. There's Hannah Avenue, or there's a route to the north of Hannah Avenue, and those discussions are ongoing. So.
Okay. And I did send you a question on the standard specs last month, and I apologize, it took me a little bit to get it to the engineers, but I did send that off to Wade Trim, Jennifer at Gordy Frazier, and John DeVozo. So when I get a response back from that, I'll let you know. Any questions for Garth? Okay, thank you very much, Garth.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Garth.
Thanks, Garth.
Okay, with that, we'll go to Parks Commission, right, guys?
That was helpful, the answers to the questions.
Oh, good.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good to see you.
This quarterly report.
Yep, that's in the packet.
Well, we've been doing a lot of forward thinking and planning. In May, we went on our, was it May? Annual parks tour. Yep, and we did visit Jen's, Grace McDonald, Pine Grove, Killingsworth. I think that's
Pines?
it.
Did you go to Pines? No?
We did not go to Pines,
Okay.
unfortunately, we didn't have time. But we had a lot of really good discussion about, the infrastructure there and what we'd hope to see. Dan joined us as well. And so after that, one of the first things we were able to do was he put together a list of items that were needed, trash cans, picnic tables, things like that. We kind of referred to it as like low-hanging fruit, just get that stuff purchased out of the way, get those improvements in place for the parks, for folks to use early in the summer. So, yeah, we were doing that. Also, unfortunately, due to the weather, we weren't able to have our sledding party in February. So we'll be having a game night at Grace McDonald on August 8th instead. Yeah. And then another upcoming project, you want to, I don't know if you're passionate about it.
You're doing good.
Okay, cool. So Holiday Woodlands, we've got a public survey that just went out, that went out in the spring, summer tax letter. So we'll be getting some feedback and creating a master plan for that. There is also a side, like an interest group, a brainstorming group. I can't quite recall the right word for that group right now, but another group of folks that are like working on that as well. And so they'll reconvene after the results of the survey come back. to kind of work on that. And the last thing on the report is the geocache. I think we have geocache in locations in all the parks now, maybe except.
We're getting them there.
We're getting them there, okay, yeah.
We just got some locations with some geocaching ones, and
Yeah, I don't know,
we're
the
getting in
Jens
place.
Park, there was already a geocache there from a community member. Yeah, which is really cool, but I think you're only allowed to have them within a certain distance of one another. They have to have space. Yeah, so we didn't want to step on their toes and, yeah. Anyways, so that's some highlights. Corey, any other things to add?
Dan wants to put a forest plan in place for Killingsworth Park, which we all agreed was needed. A lot of dead trees on the ground. Any questions?
I've got one. In y'all's tour of the parks that you had in May, what's the consensus on the playground equipment or the small toys that are over at Arbutus 5? I've been over there and the improvements are great, but the equipment that's there, I don't know if the intent is to replace it at some point in the future. It kind of sticks out now because everything else is so new and that didn't get touched.
So Ally's newer to the Parks Commission, so I'll just, because it goes back a few years, I'll
Sure.
just interject here. There's a phase 2 that the Parks Commission will look at, although when we talked about it last, they wanted to wait until phase 1 was totally complete and then take a look at the amenities there and how everything looked and laid out, and then was going to look at a phase 2.
Okay.
Yeah, because Phase 2 had a new play structure in it, and trying to incorporate some natural play structure, I think, if I remember right.
We're throwing that around.
Well,
That space is seeing more use, though, because it was very awkward before. When my kids were little, I'm sitting at the beach, and you had to go to the parking lot to go to the playground. And so now, a lot more families are coming in where the dock used to be, closer to the swing sets, and utilizing the space. So we did open it up to more usage. But there's not a lot of parking, so personally, I hate to make it too nice.
We did squeeze out a few more spaces there.
And I was there about 3 weeks ago, that week it was 90, I was there every day, and the parking lot was full, and people were on the street.
yeah.
But packed, just packed.
The sled, during that tour, we looked, the sled is being removed, the slide, I'm thinking the sledding party. The slide is being removed because it doesn't meet any safety code
Well,
there.
that's at Pine Grove.
That's there as well. There's a slide there too.
It's boiling hot, nobody ever uses it.
Yeah. And then there's a bay of swings that has 3 swings in there, and you're only allowed to have 2 swings in a bay for safety purposes. So one of those swings will just be taken out, which is just a matter of unchaining it, taking the center one out. And then the rest of what's there will be left until they take a look at what phase 2 looks like and come up with a plan for that and look at the funding for it.
Question. Do we know if Carter's Kids is still funding and building play structures like they did when Mindy was on the Park Commission and we were able to secure that for Grace
I
McDonald?
think he is.
I mean, I know he lives local.
He does?
They tend to be bigger play structures though than the intensity than I think that they'll be looking at in
We had talked
Arbutus.
years ago about pulling the old one out of storage, but we've sold that?
Yeah.
Donated it?
No, we still have it, but it's quite a bit older and we did,
It's not up to compliance, so you
it's,
can't use it.
exactly, we scrapped it.
That was the whole goal, was to take the play structure that was fairly new out of Grace and put it into Arbutus. But by the time we got to it, there were too many issues with that play structure to put it into Arbutus.
when it was a young tot
Yeah.
one. It
Yeah,
was
it
like
was.
for up to 4-year-olds, I think, at the time, which was what the Township Park Commission wanted.
All I'll say is don't touch the swings.
Don't touch this thing.
Don't
At
touch the
Arbutus?
swings.
Like
Anywhere.
the whole hill will slide down and the parking lot will.
Don't touch the swings. You will get in a lot of comments.
Well, we're only going to touch one swing.
You might still get lots of comments.
Any other questions for the Parks Commissioners? Thank you for being here tonight.
Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it. Okay, we will move on. The assessing department is not here tonight, but I did just want to let you know that, and I had planned on them not being here tonight, but I did want to let you know that both Ryan Porty is in full-time working, obviously, and Julie Jackson is as well. They are fitting in well, becoming acclimated with the township, and doing very well. They've started, they took the Pivot Point class and have the materials to start using that as a resource, and it was very much appreciated. I did want to talk with you as a board about looking at a vehicle for when they're doing more site visits as well for the assessing department. Obviously, we used to have the county Jeep, I guess you'd call it, excuse me, and wanted to take a look at getting something for, not only, I mean, it'll be primarily for the assessing department, but it could also be utilized for planning and zoning when they go out for enforcement, as coordinated with the assessing department. Ideally, too, it could be utilized if the other two departments are not utilizing it, if anyone is going to a training as well. But in looking at doing a vehicle like that, which I do think that we can afford to do it, it becomes a matter of, purchasing a vehicle, as we noticed with the truck, is not particularly easy to just put out there, this is the car that we want, and everybody give us a price on it, because everybody has a different vehicle, a different make, different things with the vehicle. So my intent was, as schedule allows, is to go out to the local dealers, thank you, local dealers, and get a similar style and shape of car, which we're probably looking at a small to a mid-size SUV, and then have them kind of put together their best package of what they have, and then bringing back to this board like 3 choices of, whether it's a Chevy, a Ford, a Subaru, whatever it happens to be. Does that sound like a acceptable process to the board?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know it would be helpful for those 2 departments especially to have a vehicle accessible.
We're going to buy a vehicle or lease one.
I was anticipating buying one. I can take a look at a lease if the board would want me to take a look at a lease. Or once you just, I could discuss both options.
Just throwing this out there, it's just going to be for local use only, right here,
Pretty much.
right around town?
For the most part, primarily.
It may be worthwhile in that to look at maybe some electric vehicles.
Yep.
Something that's small. There's some that are a little bit affordable, and you could charge them right here at the township hall.
I will definitely do that.
We have to put a charging station in then, right?
Yeah, you'd have to put one in.
Yeah.
I know Dan has been looking at grant funding for those at the different parks, but I don't know if he's looked at it for here yet.
Right. I think one of the places they were looking at was between the township and the library as well. So that's probably a little bit further out than I was looking at getting a vehicle, but we can take a look at those options and decide. Maybe the timing will collapse and be a little bit closer.
I think I'd say about electric vehicles, wait till they've been out for a while. those cars be sitting out here in the winter time, and everybody knows that in the battery in the vehicle, if it sits in the winter, out in the cold. I mean, I realize they got a lot of batteries in them, but, you know, I'm not so sure it's perfected yet myself.
Yeah, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's perfected. It's, I'm saying from personal experience, because I put my money into one, and they've been out for a while, and it's pretty phenomenal to not have to go to the gas station. You know, no oil changes, you rotate tires.
So what I will likely do is when I talk with the dealers or the fleet, usually end up talking with the government or fleet person for that dealership, is just ask them, you know, what they recommend, what they've had good service out of, that sort of thing, and take their, because they see a lot more of it than we do. So I guess if the first question then becomes what Tracy alluded to is, are you supportive, this is not a vote, but are you generally supportive of the idea of having a vehicle for that assessing department for their field work and for other uses within the township as appropriate?
Have we ever done any kind of assessment as how many miles they're actually traveling?
Yeah, well, it's 20% of the properties of the township of the, 8,000 parcels a year. And the other thing is becomes an issue, like making them have a vehicle to do something so entirely regular. I mean, it's a little bit less intermittent with the enforcement, plus we have the CPOs available, versus you must have a vehicle to go out on, especially with our winter roads and stuff, so.
It's part of the job.
It is part of the job, but I don't think we required them to have a vehicle service or appropriate for that.
Mindy and I, when we sat on the CIP committee, that was like back in 2012, we had that as one of our long-term goals, is to have a township vehicle because of all the different miles we were reimbursing for people traveling to conferences and to trainings and different things. We were trying to see how quickly we would be able to pay off a vehicle without, using the reimbursement amount as a payment on the vehicle. I mean, it adds up really fast, how much everybody's getting reimbursed for mileage. But then it would have to be used not explicitly for assessing. It would have to be
Yeah.
something that is used throughout the township.
Yeah, and I think the plan would be that we would use it throughout the township, but that we would coordinate that with assessing, because
There's a
they're
sign
the
in, sign out
primarily.
always, sure.
Yeah, almost like a calendar for the vehicle.
Is there a time of the year that it is used more readily than other times of the year too? For example, in my line of work, the seasonality of work is very apparent, and many times we've rented a seasonal vehicle for an X period because that's when all the miles are driven, and that way we don't have a full year of costs for the vehicle, plus somebody else is responsible for everything, right? If it needs an oil change, they're responsible for it. If it needs tires, they're responsible for it. It's
Yeah.
not, so it's just, but I don't know that that's the case. So that's why the mileage and the when is kind of important, that, just to make sure that we don't have a vehicle that's sitting there for 3 months.
Yeah, and that's why we haven't done it so far.
Right.
Well, no, that's not the only reason we haven't
Plus
done
the
it so
county
far.
had
The
one.
county had the vehicle, and it wasn't worth us for the additional marginal stuff that we would be using it for.
Right.
But without that county's vehicle, then it becomes, more. So I think that's a good question, and I'd say, I'll go back and talk with assessing and kind of maybe see what that would look like and if that would work, or if that's not the case and it would be more a year-round vehicle, then we could take a look at leasing versus buying, and also the different types of vehicles. In the end, if we do pursue a vehicle, what I would intend on doing is talking with each dealership local. My preference is to use a local vendor, just because then we don't have issues, if there is an issue, rather. Hopefully, we won't have to spray paint it and leave it on the side of the road or anything like that. If you guys aren't laughing, then you probably didn't see the news about one of the local vendors.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but I don't think typically if you buy with a local vendor, you tend to have those issues. And then I'd bring back just the recommended ones from each of the dealerships. Sure, Sue?
So I don't expect you to have the data today, but what about the truck that we have that our maintenance person is using? The days they're not working either ambulance or township, could that be
Well, that's a good
signed out to be
question.
used?
That's a good question, too. I think Julie would really enjoy driving that rig.
You like driving yours?
I do like driving my rig. I do. I do most definitely.
Well, it just a
No, that's a good
multi-purpose.
suggestion. Yep.
Other than when the plow's on it. I
Well,
think
that might,
would make
maybe they could,
difficult.
dual purpose there,
But
know.
honestly, I mean, I don't know how much they're going out when we have the snow flying. That's
I know
not,
enforcement goes up some then.
yeah, exactly. All right, well, let me go back and talk with them about it, and kind of, you gave me some good ideas, and I kind of know what you're thinking, and we'll see where that goes. We're not in a huge hurry, but did want to get your thoughts on it, so I appreciate that. All right, with that, and you'll see Ryan here. I asked him to come in October, so I'll be here at the reports meeting in October. All right, with that, we will move on to East Bay Ambulance, and Nick Lemcool is here. Hi, Nick, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody.
Good. You guys survived Cherry Festival.
Yeah,
Well, good.
been a busy couple weeks. We're getting there.
It is. Would you like to
When
go
isn't
over? Go over your report, and then we also have a request in there.
Yeah, so you guys all have the report that was sent out, added some color more to it.
Flashy.
Very flashy.
So basically, we've had a busy summer so far, busy year so far. I looked the other day, we're actually up 70 calls over last year. So it's increasingly, and we've only been out of the township 36 times so far. So a lot of that is in the township call volume that we've had an increase of. So yeah, just a general report. Our top 5 calls types are there on the left, just some comments we've had. Glenn, 78% of our patients that are transported are ALS. I know you always ask that question, so we decided to throw it in there for you. 73% of the patients we transport are township residents. And then on the second page, we just have some general information about what we've been doing. We took over the township a couple days to have some classes. Thank you for that. I know we probably weren't the best quiet neighbors. And just, yeah, things have just been busy. Any questions, comments about that?
On your 558 calls so far, how many of them are East Bay and how many of them are they just all East Bay? Did you break out what we run in another area?
So, yeah, with 36 calls is all we've ran outside agencies. So I would say most of those, a lot of them are into Garfield Township and Whitewater, or in Acme, not Whitewater. But there's quite a few into Paradise. They've been calling us to intercept with them quite a bit. So that's some of those.
Hey, Nick, how many times have they come into East Bay?
Paradise, I think, has been in like 3 times. So one of the issues that I have right now is with the county's cyber thing. A lot of our data has been we're not able to get our accurate data because everything from, I can't go back and look because we're not back to that point yet.
Okay.
So I don't have a final answer on that. I do know Paradise has been in a few times and MMR has been in a few times as well, but we're helping others more than they're helping us.
Can you talk a little bit how Alpha 2 has affected?
So yeah, there's been a few days that they've both been out on calls quite a bit, and then we've had a couple car accidents where we've had multiple patients that we've needed that truck to. Actually, the first day that we had that truck in service, we had a 3-car accident at Garfield and River Road that we took 6 patients out of. So having that second truck was extra beneficial to have.
Good.
So it has paid off.
And we've had, I know we don't always report those individual incidents, but we've also had calls that Dan has been out on when he's been in the parks as well. He's responded with the truck.
Yep,
And
and that's a huge help too, because sometimes you just can't have enough hands.
And that's what you're doing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, so it's nice, we basically have 4 rigs that can get us to a scene.
Sometimes, yeah. At least to be able to start something is helpful, for sure.
yeah, I think one of the first ones Dan went on was a cardiac patient too.
He had a cardiac arrest that he helped out on.
You said you were up 70 calls at this point this year versus last year. And then this graph up here is the top 5 of all calls.
Yeah, so that's just the top 5. It doesn't,
Right.
I didn't go all the way down just because it would be really, really busy.
Well, I was just curious, with a lot of the major detour traffic through East Bay with Grandview Parkway, has there been an uptick in traffic accidents?
I think there has. I didn't look at that deep of data. I know the sheriff's department says we're on par with car accidents, but it feels like they're up a little bit.
Okay.
And I can tell you the acuity of those the car accidents is definitely up too.
Okay.
Do you make many runs down to the motels?
Yeah, I would say our busiest area in the township is box 15, which is that strip for the hotels.
We just had a comment on where we were temporarily parked the other day, which was appropriate. And not, 15 minutes later, we had a call come in from
5 minutes.
right there.
Text.
Yeah.
Yeah, right across the street. So yeah, we have, I think our busiest box is that strip of the hotels.
Well, I'm not necessarily thinking car accidents, I'm thinking to the motels.
In general, I can't tell you pinpoint, but I can tell you that, so we have our township split into zones, the whole county split into zones, and our busiest zone is box 15, which kind of goes from Burger King over to pretty much where Tom's is, that line right there, that's our busiest box.
Because I've always had, and I thought that, I don't know if we could do it or not, but we could create a per room tax to help.
I know they do it in Detroit and Grand Rapids, and I know it's been a topic of conversation before. I just don't know where that sits legislatively to move that forward, but that'd be fantastic.
Wouldn't have to be much.
Well, and they do pay their millage as well, so.
So,
True, too.
yeah, true. Like I said, the CAD issues, the data issues, we're working through that. We've had to change a lot of our processes just to keep up with what the county's doing, because the county handles all of our data as far as 911 calls goes, and with their stuff, we kind of went to pen and paper for a little bit too, for our times and our numbers. We still, all of our reporting is all done in a CAD cloud server, but everything that comes from central, we had to pretty much generate ourselves for a little bit. We're working on our budget for 2025 currently, looking at our wages. A lot of our neighbors are, in the EMS world, are July budget season, and they all just gave a bunch of raises that are substantial. So we just need to, I'm working through making sure we're on par with all of them and where we need to be moving forward. For next year, we're not going to have any massive capital stuff. Our truck that we ordered in March of last year, I think it was, is going to be here in January of '26, so that's the schedule it's going to be. So that capital purchase will fall in January of that. The dorm project, we have a contract signed. I should know tomorrow when they plan on starting, and they have a 3-month window to complete that. Any other questions?
And we did take that request to Metro, and there was a question on the proper procedure for that. And so we're answering that question, and that will be back before another Metro agenda as well. So we don't have a definite response on that. But any other questions before we move on to the wage adjustment that's noted in the packet? Okay, do you want to just cover this?
Yeah, so when we hired Avery and Zoran a couple months ago, I knew they were going to be paramedics soon. I didn't know how quick they would be. They both took their tests and passed with flying colors. So we're looking just to do a wage adjustment, put them in line with other paramedics like we normally have done. I just didn't put it in the original hire paperwork because I didn't know how long it was going to take. So
that's where we are with that.
Okay, so with that, you're requesting that they be moved from $18 to $20 an hour? And of course, this is already really, I mean, because we've budgeted time for those hours worked anyway. It's already baked into the budget. So there would be a request to move to adjust the wage adjustment to $20 an hour effective the pay period ending July 18th, 2024 for Avery, could you pronounce? Lusalik, okay. And Zoran Van Zant. Is there a motion?
That's a
One question.
Yes.
Now, these are both licensed paramedics now, right? Okay, so are they out doing all of the I mean, there's nothing they're restricted on doing?
Correct.
Okay,
They can be fully functioned paramedics.
okay.
Was there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Move by Emma Cortade, support by Walters. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by no? All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, next in front of us, we have the Planning and Zoning Department. We have Claire Carner, who's our Director of Planning and Zoning, and we also have Bill. Why don't you come up and sit in the first row there, or at the table, or wherever is comfortable for you. But we also have Bill Vandercook here, who is our zoning administrator, and he's coming up, I believe, on a year of employment. So go ahead, Claire, take it away.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So we've had a busy first half of the year in planning and zoning. You'll see we've received 17 site plan applications so far this year. When I'm comparing that to last year, we had 16 for the entire year. And over the last 5 to 10 years, we've averaged about 12 a year. We do like about one a month. So we've been super, super busy this year in particular, as well as kind of the last several years. We've approved 282 living units. That includes senior living, which was 99 units. We've approved 381 transient units. That's campsites and hotels. I will note that 90 of those were campsites for the Timber Ridge expansion. These projects that have been approved to date have not yet broken ground, but we will have an update on total housing units like under construction at the end of this year, similar to what we did last year. We want to kind of give you the last 5 years and what's been built, what's under construction, what's on the horizon.
Be helpful.
Yeah. It's hard to keep track of just because with like the multifamily developments, they're just the rate at which they're going, but we'll definitely.
It's really hard for us.
Yeah. Hard for us, more difficult for you. So there's been 4 new zoning ordinance amendments that have been adopted so far this year. Part of that is just as we're, making a lot of progress on the zoning ordinance rewrite, there were some just time-sensitive items that needed to be addressed. I don't anticipate any more amendments going through before we get the full ordinance in place. Hopefully September is what we're shooting for. The ZBA has been meeting, I would say, less frequently than the last several years, and also approving fewer percentage of the variances over the last several years, which has been kind of based on working with legal counsel and kind of learning more about some of the best practices. We've had 1 variance that's been denied this year. There's been 1 that's been withdrawn, and then there's 2 that are currently under review. Both of those are related to the Lamar billboard, so those will be reviewed tomorrow evening. We have issued permits for 18 single-family homes to date. I will note that I know as Commissioner Henschel was mentioning how great it was that Grand Traverse County has moved to the cloud. My understanding is that our Epic was looking at potentially moving to the cloud, hadn't done that, so our permitting system is still, as we work with the county, that's still down. So Bill luckily was tracking all the land use permits on a spreadsheet, so we've got that information, but we can't access any of the information right now in Epic. And last I heard last week, they're hoping within the next 2 weeks that we can get back online. So we do have a workaround, but it's looking forward to being back online with that. We have 148 active short-term rental licenses. If you'll recall, our cap is 145, so we're quickly approaching that cap. And the next renewal period, the deadline is November 1st. So we're anticipating that there's a good chance we'll be below that 145 license cap.
Do you have any context around when the ordinance was updated? And I can't remember what the quantity, we were at around, what, 170?
176,
Yeah.
I think was the highest we got to.
I mean, that's a pretty significant decline, pretty quick. Any context to that?
We had a number of people that have sold homes and they're not transferable. We've also had some people just anecdotally state that they were, not a fan of the new licensing requirement, or just made different changes.
Didn't we have, in one of the Klaus developments, didn't he have
There's a lot of
several rentals?
multifamily- Yeah, there's a whole bunch of multifamily. There's one unit with quite a few units, maybe 17.
Yeah, and he just dropped them
That
all.
were not renewed. So, yeah, that's a good point, Beth.
Was that one of the ones in Holiday Hills area? Okay. Well, that was a big chunk of them. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if there was anything tied to some of the ordinance update.
Yeah, I think some were. And I think the most were just with the selling of the property and then not transferable.
So are you tracking where those are no longer being used? So you've got a map, like, our dense areas, are they getting some reprieve? Or are they still dense? It's other areas that are losing those short-term
We can take a
rentals?
closer look at that. I mean, I know that I know in like Pine Grove has lost a few, I know they're slowly through attrition, but we can take a closer look at exactly where those are.
Thank you.
We've got active enforcement, so we've got a number of different junk, blight, lakes area issues that have been resolved, as you'll see, without tickets. Bill, I'm sure, is happy to answer any specific questions that you have related to enforcement. We've got a lot of our larger planning projects that are underway right now and on the horizon. The big ones are, as you know, the 3 Mile Trail and safe routes. We just had a meeting earlier today, just kind of trying to figure out the timeline and getting all our ducks in a row, working with Road Commission and Prine and Newhoff and TART. Beach District is going really well. It's been a really fun process, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then the zoning ordinance. So in 2 weeks, or 1 week, yeah, next week, we've got our joint meeting with Township Board and Planning Commission. And then we anticipate after that, moving into the public hearing with the Planning Commission, and then that would go to the Township Board. So we're kind of at the final stretch of the zoning ordinance rewrite. And
Claire, what's the date of that meeting?
it's next Tuesday, the 16th of July at 6:30. And I'm planning to get packets out tomorrow, so. And please let me know if you would like a full printed copy of the zoning ordinance. I know Sue wants one, but I'm happy to get printed copies for anyone. Otherwise, it works pretty well on the computer, so whatever your preference is.
Okay, are there any questions on the report? Otherwise, we will move to the Beach District Implementation Team.
Just one quick one. What's happening down on South Airport and Town Line?
Good question. We met with the developer, I think Bill and I, maybe 3 weeks ago, and they've got the project for sale right now. So they went ahead, they reseeded it all, they moved all the dirt piles, they fenced around the foundation to make sure it's safe, so they've got it all stabilized. But they're kind of deciding whether or not they want to sell the project or if they want to go ahead and develop it. I think father and son both have differing views of how they want to proceed, but they've been really working well with us just in terms of stabilizing the site. And
I did notice that, it looked much better.
yeah.
I got a brother that lives down that direction.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Got to have him.
Well, if you know, Stellar when I came back into town after being gone for a week, Stellar had changed a little bit. And I thought to myself, well, 2 men in a truck, 2 men in a builder brought in 2 friends, and so 4 of them are making some changes now. So we'll see how quickly that one goes.
Bill's got a comment.
Bill, come up to the microphone. You
Bill.
can sit up here.
I just want to make a couple of comments.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I don't know, many of you really have met me, like most of you have. I guess Glenn has, right? No. Anyways, Bill Vandercook, the zoning administrator. First, I want to thank you for the work here at East Bay. It's been fun. It's been challenging, too. So I had a good friend that was on the planning commission back in Flint. He told me, just keep chaos in the order or in the corner. And then my other friend, the planning commission chair, he said, just don't let him see us sweat. And those two things have really helped me since I've been here. So the enforcement has been challenging, but it's been fun too, because I like people. And I think if we can help people to become educated about our ordinance, right, then that's where we can become winners with the individuals. So, talking with our attorney, we don't always have to write tickets. The goal is the compliance. That's our goal, is bring them into compliance. So really goal is, educate these individuals, right? Help them to understand so that we don't have to write tickets. There is one missing ticket on here I needed to put on here. And that was for someone that just doesn't want to become compliant. So we'll give them a chance to appeal the decision, give them a chance to, go and apply for a variance. We give them plenty of time, and they've decided not to do that. So that's when you're probably going to see tickets from the department. Most of the time they're not needed because we can educate people on, the ordinance. So I'm excited to, work with people. I think the one thing I just want to mention about the forest management plan that the Parks Department mentioned, they may need a forest overlay district plan if they're going to cut 50 feet within the lake's edge out there. The permits are free for dead trees. So I just wanted to say that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Claire, do you want to go into the Beach District implementation?
Sure. So this implementation team has been meeting monthly since February. It's a mix of business owners, hotel owners, retail, like a nice mix of the different business stakeholders. We've got a couple residents as well as agency partners. They've all been quite engaged, provided valuable feedback on the process to date, and the majority of what they're helping advise on has been really how to make this a inclusive visioning effort. So how to get people engaged, how to get the word out, how to connect, how to help us connect with stakeholders along the corridor. That's been the primary focus. As we transition, the end of this year, we're going to have a final report from the Beach District, and there's going to be specific action plan with implementation recommendations. And so we anticipate that this group is going to transition from being, really focused on how do we get the word out, how do we engage people, to taking a close look at how to really implement the priorities. So looking at different financing options, potentially advising the township and the township board on some different policy options related to actually paying for and financing these priorities that the community has identified. So just being as transparent as possible, we felt that it was best to make this a formal subcommittee of the township board, have a township board trustee representative on the implementation team, have all of the meetings. We've been taking minutes, but just make sure that they are following the Open Meetings Act moving forward. So we brought this to the Planning Commission last month. They unanimously recommended the list that's included in your packet of implementation team members, along with a trustee to be determined tonight. We also discussed the length of the tenure for the implementation team members. To me, it's more of a project with kind of a beginning and end date, so I don't know if we necessarily need a term of service, but I would anticipate that this would be a group similar to the zoning ordinance subcommittee that would work for 1 to 2 years to really set the township up for kind of what is the plan for implementing and what is the next step, and hand it off to whatever that implementation entity is or tool set.
Claire, would you go over the kind of the types of groups, not necessarily the individuals specifically, but kind of the representation of stakeholders that you have on this?
Sure. We have, we've got a couple of hotel owners, managers. We have TART, we have Beta, Traverse Connect, the Garden Spa. We have Grand Traverse County. We have Dan Leonard, who's chair of the Planning Commission and also MEDC representative. We have the Watershed Center, MDOT. We have a neighbor in like the 4 Mile neighborhood, Oak Drive, actually 2 of them, and then also Pine Grove neighbor. We have Swing Theory, which is the virtual golf, and then we also have the Board of Trustees to be determined.
Okay, any questions for Claire on this implementation team?
Do they meet during business hours, during the day?
We have, so we kind of assembled the team and then got input from them about the most convenient time. So right now, we are meeting, I think it's the third or the second Thursday at 9 a.m. So I anticipate that we're not going to continue to meet monthly, just because I think that's a little bit more frequent than is necessary. I think we'll probably get into a rhythm of every other month or even potentially quarterly, depending on how much work we have to do and how much to review.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Is there a volunteer for the implementation team?
I'd volunteer.
Okay.
Thank you, because when I brought it up that there wasn't any, they all tried to get me to do it, and I said no. I got a little on my plate.
Yes, you do.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the creation of the Beach District Implementation Team, which will serve as a subcommittee of the Board of Trustees?
I'll make that motion with it, adding
Yep,
Matt as the Board of Trustee representative.
correct, Cook, for clarification.
Yes.
And there's support. So there's a motion by Walters and support by Lyle. Any further discussion? You know, you do that a couple of times, and you just don't live it down.
It doesn't get any better the
I
older you
know.
get either.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? All right, very good, thank you. We'll move on to the safe routes to school with respect to easements. I think you will notice in your minutes from last month, there was a motion to approve the supervisor be allowed to sign the easements for 3 Mile Trail. As we had that meeting today regarding safe routes to school, we weren't sure who was signing the easements. We did have the road commission staff there too, and we think it'd probably be best if we move with the easements being in the name of East Bay Township. So we would like to recommend that the township also authorize the supervisor to sign the easements for the safe routes to school easements, as well as the 3 Mile Trail, which was already done.
Make the motion.
Support.
Okay, motion is made by Walters and supported by Cook. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed by no?
No.
Okay, show M. Cortate dissenting. With that, thank you very much, Claire. Appreciate it. And Bill, thank you very much for being here tonight. Public comment, we're in our last section of public comment. We do not have any public here. Upcoming meeting, we have July 16th at 6:30 PM as the joint meeting with the Planning Commission. And then our next Township Board meeting is August the 12th, 2024. And I will mention to you the first public comment by Ben Fisher, I believe is his last name, just in working with him to identify his method of recourse or how he would go about pursuing what he wants to do, and if whether it's a variance, whether it's a request for ordinance change, is there a level of appeal within that ordinance ordinance, those things. We're just trying to clarify some of those questions for him. And, but we did want to have him come and let you guys know that that's on the radar, so that if anything comes before you, you'll understand the source of that. So thanks for allowing that clarification. And if there's no objection, we stand adjourned. Everybody have a good night. Drive careful.